Yeah, boy.
NetherRealm games are full of interesting characters. Shang Tsung can transform into the opponent, Reptile can turn invisible, and Zatanna can even mix up your inputs. However, today we'll be looking at the most creative character that NetherRealm has ever made, and her name is Enchantress. Oh my god, so where to even begin with this character? She has so many interesting things going for her. Let's start off with the curses. So Enchantress had the ability to hex the opponent, and there were 4 different possible hexes, and if you as the opponent did not know what each hex did, then you would damage yourself and not even know why.
Goes to the life drain instead of meter.
Oh my no! Oh no, if there was one spell he needed at the magic time, it was that one.
So right now, just to illustrate that, I'm gonna take control of Supergirl and tell Enchantress to hex me. Now, alright, so here we go. What's it gonna be? Ehwaz. Okay, this one is dirty. So now you take damage for jumping or ducking. So if you're a character that loves her air dash like Supergirl, well, I recommend just staying on the ground because as you can see, I'm actually taking double damage for staying in the air even longer. So once again, if I jump just one time, it's 1 tick of damage. If I jump and dash, it's 2 ticks of damage. Look at that. And to make this curse even dirtier, if my special move has a down back input, then I take damage just for doing the input because I pressed down. Same with the frost breath, that's down forward. So if I do that, I'll also take damage. So any strings or special moves that involve down will also do damage to you. And as you're about to see, this curse is also the ultimate defense against toxic teabaggers online because it spells certain doom. A big thanks to SMG Princess for letting me use this video. Her and I both want to see Enchantress in the next Injustice game. And if by some miracle she does make it in, then teabaggers beware because you will literally kill yourself. Okay, here we go. Spin the wheel of destiny once again. Ooh, now we have Manaz. So this one means I can no longer build meter. If I hit you, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to gain any bar for it. So as an example, I'm going to beat up on Enchantress a little bit and look at how I'm building just a little bit of meter every time I hit her. However, once I get cursed, these hits are no longer going to give me any meter. So check this out. I'm getting nothing. I get no meter, and this also applies if she hits me. I won't gain meter there either. And then perhaps the most frightening of all, you also cannot do a wager clash when under this curse. So if she combos you and you're low on health, you just get to die because you have no combo breaker available. And then next up, let's talk about Fehu. So this one just means no special moves. So as Supergirl, I can't teleport, I can't do frost breath, I can't even use my heat vision under this curse. And on top of that, it also gets rid of my air throw, which means certain strings like this no longer have the throw follow-up, so no meter burned there and I can't get a combo going. So against certain characters like Supergirl who rely on special moves for combos and mobility, this curse is extra effective. It can essentially make characters like Supergirl bottom tier. And then last but certainly not least, we have Haggles. So this one is interesting. If I spend any meter, I give all of it to Enchantress. And then on top of that, every time I do spend meter, I take damage. So look at that. Every special move that I amplify, I take damage. And this also goes for attack strings that I amplify as well. So right here, still took damage. One more time, if I do this string, amplify, I'm taking damage. So this curse is kind of the nicest because all you have to do is not spend a meter. So it typically doesn't affect your gameplay that much, but once again, keep in mind, some characters need to spend their bar just to get their combos going. Now, thankfully, the good news is, if you're fighting Enchantress, these are all random, and she can't choose which one she gives you. If she could, then she would be guaranteed top 5. But even though these curses are random, just look at how creative NetherRealm got with this character. All these different ideas for the hexes are super fun and inventive. And you likely also notice the tiny bit of damage the opponent takes every time they're hexed. This is actually unblockable. If they don't interrupt Enchantress, they're guaranteed to take that tiny bit of damage. And then once you do hex the opponent, Enchantress also gets a bit more damage on her throws as well. So check this out. We're doing 174, whereas by default, we do a little bit less. Let's see. We're doing about 123, so a slight damage buff to her throws. And there's actually one more attack this hex buffs as well, but we're gonna save that for later. For now, let's talk about the Parries, the Katy Parries, because technically this character has 3. So by default, if the opponent hits me, I teleport behind them, which as you can see against certain moves, that's a guaranteed whiff punish. And of course, these parries can also work great against certain wake-ups as well. So this wake-up move from Supergirl is completely invincible. However, I can still parry it, and now I get a full combo punish with this back 3. And then if you want to, you can hold up during the parry and actually come down from above, which means a bit more damage on your punish combo. Not to mention this also works great against any attacks that hit on both sides. So already these parries are really good because they can lead to a full punish or even a setup in the hands of a good player. However, this next parry is where things get really interesting, and it's honestly one of the most creative parries NetherRealm has ever made. So we have Shrieking Witch and we have Evil Essence. As you can see, they look very similar, but they actually behave completely different. So the first string is actually a parry. So if you're too eager to take your turn back, you will get hit and put full screen, which means a guaranteed setup. Maybe I can go for a hex, any number of things. So after the opponent gets parried a few times, they're gonna want to block, but then I can do Evil Essence and it's actually unblockable. And the difference is so minor you can barely even spot it. So Evil Essence has a bit more of a glow than Shrieking Witch, but they look very similar. And from what I've seen, even at high level play, most players can't even react to the diamond's visual difference fast enough, not to mention it's sometimes behind the character a little bit, so it's even harder to see. So already you have to guess between a parry or the unblockable itself, and what makes it even scarier is the first hit restands. So for example, if I do a basic combo like this, I can restand you and now you have to guess. I can use the unblockable or I can go for the parry. But things get even trickier because I can also dash cancel both of these options and go for a throw, more pressure, any number of things. In fact, if the opponent is patient enough, I can even summon a demon right in their face and go for some crazy hard to block setups. And some of you watching might be thinking, well, I'm just gonna attack every single time because the parry doesn't really hurt that much, so if I guess correctly, I'll get a full combo, and if I guess wrong, it's only a tiny bit of damage. And you may be right most of the time, but if you're under a hex, look how frightening this parry becomes. Check out all this extra damage, 33. That's a combo by itself, and it didn't cost me any meter. And then on top of that, it's also a single hit, so the wager cannot help you here. If this parry catches you and you're low on health, you're just guaranteed to die. Once again, this character is just so darn creative, and this parry is one of the most interesting in all of NetherRealm games, if you want my opinion. I just love the option for the unblockable or the parry. It's such an interesting gimmick. However, this character is not done being fascinating because she also has the Spell of Protection. So this means Enchantress no longer takes any damage. Instead, every hit you land will only drain her super meter. So once again, I'm gonna take control of Supergirl and just check this out. So every hit I land ain't gonna do nothing to Enchantress. It's only going to hurt her meter. However, as you just saw, once the meter runs out, her spell will cancel on its own. And the spell already runs out on its own, but if you beat her down fast enough, then the spell will cancel because she no longer has any meter. And as you can imagine, this spell becomes extra clutch whenever Enchantress is low on health, because now you simply can't kill her as long as she has meter. And even though Enchantress can't block right away, the armor activates really quick, so look at that. The second I noticed she was charging it, the armor was already going to happen, so it's almost impossible to interrupt this spell on reaction. And there are actually a bunch of different safe ways that Enchantress can set this up. She could land an overhead forward 3 and then go for it. She could land a back 3 and then go for it. She could summon a monster and then go behind it and use the armor. She can even freeze the opponent in solid ice and then go for the armor, and you know what, just for fun I'm gonna hex the opponent too, why not? Now it's not the best setup because it does cost meter, but it's just one more setup that Enchantress has. But then we have my favorite setup that I saw at a tournament and I love it so much. So if you land any sort of combo extender whatsoever, you can use the standing 2 to restand the opponent, and they're gonna be scared of the parry or the unblockable. They're gonna be watching for that, but instead you restand the opponent and you just apply the armor, and they don't expect it. And at a high level, this armor was so hype because you could literally hang on to a single pixel of health and then still manage to get the win. It was amazingly hype. And next up, let's talk about the Reflect, because even that was very unique for Enchantress. So essentially, this character is a counter zoner. So of course, she has to have a Reflect of some kind. However, even Enchantress Reflect is interesting. So by default, it does this. It sends its own projectile back at me. However, depending on where it's hit, it's gonna go at that angle. So by default, it's already a mid. Even though it is high off the ground, it's still a mid. You cannot crouch under this thing. However, if the projectile hits it at a lower angle, then the projectile is also lower down as well. So check it out. It went from hitting me in the head to hitting me in the knees. And then if I aim even lower, it's gonna attack my feet. So once again, there's nothing normal about Enchantress. Even her Reflect is unique, and I love it so much. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't work against everything. For example, it does not work against Aquaman's Trident or Poison Ivy's Vines, any of those things, and it's why those characters were a horrible matchup for this character. But even so, this this reflect is really interesting, isn't it? I just love how everything about this character is unique. And then last but not least, we gotta talk about the character power, summoning the demon Xibalba. So by default, this guy walks forward and he hits overhead. And as you just saw, he launches the opponent, which means yes, you get a full combo every single time. And since he does hit overhead, I can do dirty setups like this where I go for a low right before he hits and it becomes a very tough to block situation. And you might be thinking, okay, well, I'll just go for a wake up. But keep in mind, this guy does not have a hurt box. You can't hit him, and on top of that, his hitbox is very big. So even if your wake up sends you high into the air, he might still get you. And I should also mention, this guy travels a very far distance. In fact, he stays on screen for so long that a lot of pro players forget he's there, and then he just walks into frame and hits them for a full combo. And to make things even crazier, this demon doesn't go away just because Enchantress gets hit. He stays on screen, so even if you combo her, this guy can still come in clutch with the save. And this guy turns around too, so even if you teleport, he will find you. He is determined and he does not give up. He does go away after a set period of time, but it takes a good while. However, on top of all of that, this guy can also be commanded to turn into a wall. Now, he doesn't reflect projectiles, but he does become a solid barrier that the opponent cannot get through. So if you get launched in the corner, she can just summon this guy, tell him to guard, and now you have to deal with everything she does. If you try to jump, she can anti-air, she can do an armored back 3, any number of things. And then even from mid-screen, this guy can be his own pseudo corner because the opponent doesn't fall away from you. Once again, he is a wall. And that's basically Enchantress in a nutshell. She has a couple of other cool things, like she can meter burn attack strings to extend combos, and they have some really cool effects. And she also has one of the most unique forward 3s in the game because not only does it not offer up her own hurt box, but she can actually aim this thing too. If she holds forward, there's a far version. If she presses back, there's a close version, so she can aim her forward 3 overhead. And she even has some swaggy double jump combos like you saw earlier, so this character is just awesome. Once again, I do believe this character is the most creative and confusing character that NetherRealm has ever made, which is why, once again, if Injustice 3 does happen, I sincerely hope this character makes it in because I love unique designs like this. You don't see them very often. But please let me know your thoughts down below. How do you feel about Enchantress? Do you love her? Do you want her back for the next Injustice? Please let me know in the comments. And then while you're down there, please leave a like if you enjoyed the video. It really does help my channel out a ton. And finally, why not keep that combo going by suplexing that subscribe button? That way you never miss a future video. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs.